your backstory in NASCAR is pretty interesting, and anytime we have a racing guest on the podcast, I like to kind of request that you bear with me. So if I ask a dumb question or anything like that, it comes from my own ignorance about the sport, and certainly not my producer's ignorance, who is a big racing fan and tries to give me a crash course anytime we have somebody on. But you're a former crew chief with Hendrick Motorsports, and you started working full time as a mechanic for Jeff Gordon's team at 16 years old. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, so listen, if your dad golfs, you golf, right? So I'm from Maine originally. My dad built race cars in Maine. He moved south, got
Okay.
hired into the NASCAR world. I was Ray Evernham's neighbor, who was Jeff Gordon's original crew chief. He was like the OG, the guy that started with Jeff Gordon. So, and he said, hey, you know, he was my neighbor. He said, why don't you start coming in and start sweeping the floors? The weekend I turned 16, I started sweeping the floors in the shop. And the truth is, I just never left. I started sweeping the floors at 16. I worked my way up through the ranks, became Jeff Gordon's crew chief at 25, 26. And then I crew chief for him for a few years, then for Dale Jr., did about 20 years in competition. And then when NBC got the TV broadcast rights back in 2014, 15, my last year on top of the pit box was 2014, and I've been in the TV booth since 2015 on.
So as a full-time mechanic at 16, what were you doing? Because most 16-year-olds I know, they can't parallel park, they can't change their oil. So like to be working on Jeff Gordon's team at that age is pretty impressive.
So you know, I tell everyone there's nothing I haven't done. And people think, oh, you know, this guy's bragging. No, I mean, like, no. Like, I've cleaned the bathrooms, I've washed the vans, right? Like, I've cleaned the wheels for the car, all the way up to, you know, the strategist. So, I mean, that's really it. At 16, what do? You do what everybody else doesn't want to do, right? You're the guy that washes literally the hauler that brings the cars, or you clean the coolers and restock them with water for the next week. I mean, you are the labor force. Yeah. And I loved every second of it. I mean, I've been at racetrack. I have no memory not at racetracks, right? So since I was, you know, knee high, I was at racetracks around New England. So it's all I ever know, which is the key. Listen, Brandon, you don't know racing, no stupid questions. I think that's the beauty of kind of the current state of global motorsport. Yeah. Is we don't want this to be a club.
Right.
Like, everybody come on in. Like, racing's awesome. You don't have to know what's going on, right? Like, it's kind of like Olympics, you know, every 4 years, the Summer Olympics come, or the Winter Olympics, depending on what you prefer. And, you know, there's some obscure sports, right? Like, but I watch some handball. I love some handball. It's some crazy stuff. I don't know anything about it, but I'm entertained, right? So that's what we try to do in the motorsport world, man. Come on in. It's an open book.